Welcome to Bet On It. You know what that music means. It's time for week 8 of college football and me to stop talking behind the scenes to my favorite guys, Marco D'Angelo and Joe Raineri. Man, one of these days, somebody is going to compile these hot mic takes, and it's going to be absolutely electric. Also, I cannot believe it's already week 8 of college football. I lost my best bet on last weekend due to some ineptness from whether it was Manny Diaz or James Franklin. It's still up for debate, but we're on to this week, gentlemen. Marco D'Angelo, I'm going to go to you first here. You ask me which primetime games I want to talk about, and I just can't ever make a decision. But we're going to talk about this one. UCLA at Oregon. Oregon, a 6-point favorite, total 69.5, Saturday on Fox, 3:30 Eastern. Make me make sense of this, Marco. I want to take UCLA so bad, plus the points, and maybe even a sprinkle on the money line.
I know you do. It's a dog in a primetime game. And a knee-jerk reaction is to grab the points. I agree with you. When I started to look at this game, that's what I was going to do. But I'll tell you, the more I looked at the game, I kept getting visions of Penn State at Michigan last week. I can't help it. Is this going to be this week's sharp square dog, as we like to say, when everybody likes to line up on the dog? That scares the hell out of me, Kelly, and I think that's going to be the case here. So I started to try to dig a little bit deeper. As you said, it's week 8 already in college football. October 22nd on Saturday. Do you realize this is only going to be the second road game for UCLA? That scares me as well. I'm looking at this, and if you look at their first road game, can you even really call that a road game? They went to Colorado. Do they even have a team this year? They're so bad. What's going to happen if Oregon jumps out, to a 2-score lead? Is UCLA going to be able to come back? I'm not a big fan of Bo Nix. I'll admit that for Oregon. But after that start that he had against Georgia, and that's a ferocious defense, and he had seen that defense before, this team's only got 2 turnovers in the last 5 games. I'm going to go weak vote here. I don't know that I'll get to the window on Saturday, but I'm going to go Oregon 41-31. About the only thing I can count on is I don't think there's going to be any defense in this game. This has all the makings of a shootout, and I think we'll have a fun game to watch in Oregon on Saturday.
Man, Marco just took the words out of my mouth. And Joe, the reason why I'm leaning towards the Bruins is because of that Oregon secondary. I do think this is also going to be a shootout, but they're giving up 275 passing yards. UCLA, Chip Kelly, what do we like them to do? That's right, air it out. I know this could go either way in a shootout type scenario, but that's got me leaning towards taking the points here. This is a team that's covered almost 7 of their last 8 games. They might be a square dog, but hey, so is Tennessee.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, the reality is, what more do you want UCLA to do here? We heard the same line of, I don't know, that South Alabama game was so close, it was all, and then, they welcomed in Washington, and this was supposed to be an offense that was going to expose the defense of UCLA, and you know what, Cal? It didn't expose it. Oh, yeah, and then, of course, Utah, they were supposed to come in and push UCLA around, and guess what happened? They stuck their foot up their ass. Even Utah afterwards was saying, we were not expecting that kind of physicality from this UCLA team. They got pushed all over the field. And if it's one thing that we can say about Oregon, Cal, we harken back to that opening game against Georgia. What was the big difference in that game? Georgia imposing their will on them physically. They pushed them around in that game. And I got a big feeling that's exactly what's going to happen here with these UCLA guys. First of all, Charbonnet's going to be able to run at will. He's already averaging over 7 yards a carry here. This is going to come down to quarterbacks too, right? So do we like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who has been unbelievable this year, and he's got just a plethora of weapons on the outside who are getting it done? Or do we trust Bo Nix, who is for the most part done well until they've played physical teams that got in his face and got after Bo Nix? To me, listen, anything can happen on the road in the second half of the game. But you know me, Cal. I think UCLA goes in there, and I think they impose their will early. And I think getting over a field goal in the first half is the way to look at this. Give me UCLA in the first half.
Joe, I know you're a Sagittarius like me, and we all have commitment issues, but just once, I want you to commit to a full game.
Marco committed to the full game. What do you want? Because Kel, I think it's two bets. What you see in the first half, I guarantee is going to translate to an overvalued number for Oregon in the second half. You can come right back over the top with them here. I do think physicality is going to be the reason UCLA wins this game.
Okay. Well, sounds like Joe and I are on the same side to start, and I don't know if we are here. I did call Joe earlier mid-show and said, what the hell do I do with your Oklahoma State Cowboys? Another 3:30 Eastern start. T-Boone Pickens Stadium. Oklahoma State just lost to TCU, and I have to apologize to Joe once again for mushing that one, but now they are 6.5-point underdogs to the Texas Longhorns. So I get on my odds screen. I say, okay, what the hell is going on? Who's hurt? And it literally says no injuries listed. Joe's got some good insight on this one and may keep me off this game, unfortunately. But let's hear it, Joe, before we kick it over to Marco.
Yeah, so the reality is, and the thing you need to understand about Coach Gundy in Oklahoma State is nobody does the whole cloak and dagger thing like he does. There is a pretty tight ship over there. Not a lot of information ever leaks. Spencer Sanders, we learned almost before kickoff in that TCU game, wasn't practicing all week. Why? That shoulder of his is a big problem. It's also limited what they were able to do in practice last week and limited his mobility to a certain degree. It appears the same situation is going on this week. There are huge question marks, and there are some in that program that think, listen, he's going to show up game day and go and make it a go because he's a trooper. But the reality is he ain't practicing all week again. The offensive line, including Preston, his center, who has been with him from the very beginning, is out. There are backups to the backups that are going to be trying to protect him in this game. They can't run the ball. They have not run it, which means you're going to have to rely on a quarterback with a bum shoulder to beat what is a pretty darn good underrated defense, especially in the secondary with Texas here. The reality is they're not healthy. If you can't run the ball against Texas and minimize some of the exposure of Spencer Sanders, then then Gundy Jr., Gunnar Gundy, is going to be playing in this game, and I think that scares everybody because he really hasn't taken a snap yet in any big game at any level anytime soon. So I do think, Cal, instead of taking the side, because it would pain me too much to have to go with Texas in here. I understand the market move. It has everything to do with who's available for this game and who can't practice. And I think we're one hit away from losing Spencer Sanders. That's how bad it appears to be. So I am instead going to focus on the total here, Cal. I think Texas's defense is underrated. I think they're going to try to run the ball down the throat of Oklahoma State because they really haven't been able to stop anybody this year. They're not the defense they were a year ago. Coach Gundy even said it. I think 62 was a ambitious number. 62 wouldn't have been a problem with a healthy Spencer Sanders, but 62 when we're probably not going to get the same level of offense from Oklahoma State, it leads me to focus on the under in this one. So that's where I'm heading, Cal. Under 62 with a hobbled Oklahoma State Cowboys team.
The under was the absolute right side in that TCU game as well until, well, it went to overtime. Those kind of things happen. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Marco, there was a lot to unpack there from our Cowboys insider, but I'm with Joe here. Until I get some definitive answers about who's going to be under center for the Cowboys, I have to stay away. However, I do think this line is just a touch too high. That's with some cluster injuries to the O-line as well as a banged-up Spencer Sanders. If he is a go, would you take the bait with the 6.5?
No, Kelly, I'm going to take the bait with Texas here, and I'll tell you why. Last week, we were all over Iowa State, and I screamed at the top of my lungs everywhere that I could that this was the sandwich of all sandwich spots for Texas. They were coming off that big Oklahoma win the week before, and they had Oklahoma State, who was undefeated at the time, on deck. And there just was no way they were going to be up for Iowa State. And what happened? Well, they were life and death with the punchless Cyclones. They got away with the 24-21 win, but we got the easy cover, getting 15 and a half, 16 points, whatever number you were able to snatch that at. Now, for all those reasons that I was against Texas last week, you know what that means. I'm lining up with Texas this week because this is what they were looking ahead to. They were waiting for Oklahoma State. And everything that Joe said is correct. The only thing I'll add to that, the defense being down, it's got a lot to do with a guy that's a defensive coordinator that's sitting at Ohio State now instead of Oklahoma State. That's got a lot to do with it. And they are going to be going against a very good Texas offense. We know that. But yes, this is a defense that's underrated. They held West Virginia to 20. They shut out Oklahoma in 21 last week to Iowa State. Now, some may say that was a bad defensive performance when Iowa State scores 21 points in one game, because that's basically their grand total for the month of October in that one game. But I like Texas here. I'm going to go ahead, lay the points with them, and talk about Oklahoma State. Another trend is that defense is going in the wrong direction. Last 3 weeks ago, 25 points allowed. 2 weeks ago, 31 points allowed, and then last week, 43. This train's heading the wrong direction, and this is coming off that first loss for Oklahoma State. I like to fade teams off that first loss. Let's take Texas 44-31. I'm going a little higher scoring than Joe in this one here with the under, but I like Texas lay the points.
All right, we're off and running. You know what that means. Time to take a break, but not a commercial. It's time to see my favorite guy of the trio. That's right, Mr. Ralph Michaels with some TNA. There he is, the man with the pin at CalSportsLV on Twitter, Ralph Michaels, bringing us all the TNA here on Bet On It and also bringing it on Twitter. So make sure you guys are giving him a follow so you don't miss out on anything. Ralph, a little birdie told me you had a nerd chart for me, which you guys all know is my favorite. Sounds like I'll have to wait to the end of the segment, but I know you have 4 situations for us going into college football week 8.
Well, first, Cal, let's talk bubble burst. Teams that are undefeated through the first part of the season start to get excited. So looking at game 7 and on, when teams are off their first loss of the season, like Oklahoma State, James Madison, Alabama, and Penn State, they are only 43% against the spread, which is a 152 and 202 record. We're talking a sample size of 370 games since 1990. So not a very strong trend. It is 57%, but it's something to remember. And if teams lost as a favorite, like Alabama, those teams the next week, if getting their first loss after game number 7, are only 26% against the spread. So Alabama falls into that 26% category of, again, game 7 and on, and you're off the first loss of your season. So look to fade those teams in game number 2. System number 2, Kelly. How about this? It's only happened 20 times in 20 years. When both teams are off a win as a double-digit dog, like Georgia Southern and Old Dominion, and they're playing each other, a very unique situation in college football. The home team in that role, 17-3, 80%. Georgia Southern off a win as a double-digit dog. Old Dominion off a win as a double dog. They're playing each other. Again, the home team has covered 80% of the time. That says to play on Georgia Southern. System number 3, Cal. We talked about in the first system what happens when teams are off their first loss of the season, game 7 and on. How about teams that have at least 7 wins, have 0 losses on the season, and now they're an away dog? So you are either 7-0, 8-0, 9-0, and now you're a dog on the road. That applies to Mississippi this week. If you're playing a team that has a win percentage over 50% and at least one loss, so LSU is a winning team, LSU has at least one loss, Ole Miss is undefeated with at least 7 wins and 0 losses, yet Ole Miss is the dog. Those teams, like Ole Miss, have only gone 8, 20, and 26. That's 23.5% against the spread. So the bookmakers have it right. Despite being undefeated, if you're on the road against a winning team with at least one loss, you have only covered 23.5% against the spread. So that system says to fade Ole Miss or to play on LSU. And I have a one guest college handicapper. I'm very proud. My son came up with this one. You might follow him on Twitter at JM Sports CLE. He, of course, lives in Cleveland. And he's on Sports Memo, JM Sports. So thanks, Jeff, for this. It's a nice one. A sample size of 135 games, and it's hit 61.5%. It says, if you are off a bye and you won the game before the bye, and now you're a favorite of 11 or more. So a nice, simple system that makes total sense to me. You're a team that went into your bye with a positive momentum. You are now a sizable favorite of 11 or more. You are 80 ATS wins, 50 ATS losses with 5 pushes, 61.5%. That says to play on the Ohio State Buckeyes. So the first system said to fade teams off their first loss of the season. That's Oklahoma State, James Madison, Alabama, and Penn State. Those are fades. System 2, off double-digit upset wins, says play Georgia Southern. System number 3 says to fade Ole Miss or play on LSU. And system 4 on Ohio State.
Good stuff, Ralph. Thank you for recapping that. I know sometimes you and I can both get a little overwhelming for our viewers. I know you got one last thing for us. Show me that nerd chart, producer Dan.
Well, let's just look at this. I looked at October and I looked at win streaks against the spread. So when you have teams that are on a win streak, what happens? Joe Public starts jumping on. Vegas starts making adjustments. But take a look at those numbers. Teams that have won at least 3 straight games against the spread are 41.4% the next game. How simple is that? Teams that covered 4 or more straight games have covered 34.9% in their next game. And if you have 5 or more, it did fall back a little bit, but still 39.1%. So what does that say? Well, I'll tell you what, lines get adjusted, Vegas makes adjustments. So when teams are on those big winning ATS streaks, start looking the opposite way. Does the opposite hold too? Well, teams that are on an ATS losing streak of 3 or more. So it doesn't matter if you won or lost the game straight up. It just means that you failed to cover. 3 or more ATS losses, basically a push, 50.5. But if you are on an ATS losing streak of 4 or more games, 55.4% in the next game. And if your favorite team failed to cover 5 straight games, going all the way back to 2009, they have covered 58.7%. So perhaps the team they're playing starts looking past them. Perhaps there's an adjustment in the line. But again, positive on one side, negative on the other. Those are the kinds of situations I love sharing with you because it's something you really need to pay attention to. These are October-only numbers since 2019.
I love it. October only numbers, only Ralph Michaels, breaking it down week by week, month by month here in college football. Ralph, you're the best. Make sure you guys are following him on Twitter at CalSportsLV. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, it's time for some barking dogs.
Marco D'Angelo is like a fine wine as he just gets better with age. Since 1980, Marco has been one of the industry's leading handicappers, and this year is no different. Marco is currently the #1 handicapper at Wager Talk this season in college football in both winning percentages and money won, sitting at 27-15 for a net profit of 29 units. The rest of the college football season, including all the college football games, is $4.99. Last year, Marco was 13-4 in bowl games and for a net profit of 34 units. For a limited time, you can take $50 off that price when you use coupon code CFB50, making your final cost just $3.99. And for the first 10 who sign up, we have a free bonus, a $299 value comping you a 30-day all-access subscription that will include all of Marco's NFL, NBA, and NHL plays for free. Why do you want to bet with Marco in October? Last October, Marco was number 1 in the NFL at Wager Talk. His NFL plays went 14-7-2, netting 23 units. His NHL plays went 4-0, he was up 8 units. And his NBA plays went 3-1, up 4 units. You'll want to hurry, this is a limited time offer.
Welcome back to Bet On It. I wasn't going to let Marco go first this week for barking dogs, but because, well, his barking dog is one of my favorite barking dogs, take the floor, Marco.
Oh, so that's how it works, Kelly, huh? I got to take your team to get top billing. Oh, and I'm back to one of your favorite guys again. I mean, it's like whoever's coming on the show next is one of your favorite people. But
well, listen, I do have some biases. I just happened to take a peek in the notes, saw that Joe tried to steal my best bet, but then I saw that maybe Marco. Well, Joe, listen, let's just be frank. Anyway, I'm about to block you on Twitter. That's what I'm going to do. So then you can stop stealing my best bet.
I'm already blocked. I'm already shadow banned, and you know it. You can't find me anyway. Ridiculous. Unreal.
It is ridiculous. Marco D'Angelo, we got a little dog here. I bet this one at 4.5 on Monday. But tell the world why you like my alma mater.
Yeah, this is Kansas State here. Why not, Kelly? First of all, let's look at TCU. They're undefeated. They're coming off a big game last week, a game in which they rallied from behind. And you got to feel bad for Oklahoma State. They led that game the whole way, let it slip away at the end, and TCU gets the win. But do you smell something funny here? This line is sitting at 3.5, okay? Last week, TCU, playing another undefeated team on this very same field, was laying 4.5, 5. And now we've got a smaller line to Kansas State, who's got a loss on the season, just barely won their last game at Iowa State. We've all made fun of the Iowa State offense. They win that game 10-9. Why is this line less? Yeah, I could have used this as a trap game as well, and that's what I'm looking at with TCU. This is a bad spot for them. And Kelly, I'm going to go back to one of my favorite mantras when handicapping a game. If you're going to give me the better defense, getting points, I'm going to be there all the time. And we've got Kansas State, clearly the better defense in this matchup. I'm going to take them against TCU. What I also like about Kansas State is they can run the football. And the best defense for stopping a high-powered offense is don't let them on the field. Run the football. Have long, sustained drives, which I feel Kansas State will do in this game. And Kansas State, talking about running the football, how about number 8 in the country at 244 yards per game? You'll frustrate teams when they sit on the sidelines for long periods of time, and then when they get out on the field, they feel like they got to force the issue to get out there and score. I like Kansas State in this spot. You know I've been on Kansas State pretty much all year, was high on them at the beginning of the year, just like Kelly, got them on the season win total over. We've had several big plays with them this year that they've done us well. I like them here again. I'm calling for the upset. Sorry, TCU, the undefeated Cinderella season comes to an end. And as you know, with teams that generally are not in this position, the further you go into the season with that 0 in the right-hand column, the heavier it is to get to the finish line. I'll take the points with Kansas State, 31-27.
Marco, I love when we agree. Joe Raineri,
I just want to know, wait a minute. Is Adrian Martinez throwing an interception or not? Because he has not. So I just want to go. I don't know what the hell happened.
Is that your attempt at like some sort of karmatic payback?
That is a big side bet going on right now about his ability to throw an INT. He hasn't done it. What a difference. You know, it's not that far from Lincoln.
Now doesn't cover and loses by a pick 6. I'm going to remember this.
That's what you get for picking against
He said
Oklahoma
2 weeks
State.
to prepare. That's the other thing I didn't.
That's a good point too, Marco. Yes, that's a good point too.
I had the points with you and Chris versus TCU, and we got very lucky to cover that in overtime because they choked very badly after my tweet.
Disgusted.
That was my fault. Joe Raineri, your favorite little chihuahua, because you know you're not going to bring me something sizable here.
Oh,
give me a 1.5 point underdog. You think it's worth sprinkling on the money line?
Listen, on behalf of all the chihuahuas here, man, don't listen to it here, guys. How is this? How about a touchdown dog that's going to win outright? Is that all right? Can we work with that?
I love those.
Great. Then let me introduce you to boy, oh boy, this is rough even saying it. But let me introduce you guys to Cal, who is now at home taking on a Washington team who is, shall we say, defensively, what's the crap? That's pretty much what they are, especially statistically. They're in the bottom 10 nationally across every metric known to mankind. They just had a shootout against Arizona State, lost as a 13.5 point favorite there. UCLA, 2.5 points. UCLA dropped a 40 burger on them. Cal is very inconsistent. I grant that. But Justin Wilcox is not inconsistent. The one thing that we know about him as an underdog with his Cal teams, 22-9-1, 71% as an underdog. And you're asking a Washington defense, which isn't any good, Cal. That's pretty much just terrible in most every metric that matters. You want them to go on the road in conference and win by more than a touchdown? I don't think so. The one thing that Justin Wilcox can do is coach up his defense. The Cal defense is going to take away everything up over the top that they're going to try and get away with there with DeBoer and company. I think this is total value. Home, I believe it, what is it? Ralph had sent it to me. Home conference dogs that lost by double digits the week prior, 63%, Ralph said, since 2005. To me, this is all Cal. It has been profitable to back Justin Wilcox and these Cal teams over the years. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I ain't buying Washington on the road as more than a touchdown favorite. I'll take the 7 points gladly with Cal in this one.
Remember I told you guys Joe steals all my picks? I just want this to be known.
What is what?
You probably can't.
Oh, fuck. I
can't get it in there close enough. Over here. Over here. Over here. Over here. I can't get there. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
okay,
there it is.
now.
There it is.
Right there.
Yep.
UCLA, Cal, West Virginia, Marshall, and then my best bet, which we'll get to at the end of the show.
You know who I blame? I'll tell you who I blame. Marco. Because he stole all my picks, so then I had to go and take yours, apparently. So when in doubt, blame Marco. Terrible.
I agree with that. When in doubt, Marco is the bet on it punching bag. Oh. Of course he is. We got to be nice to Marco. He's got a birthday coming up. I think he's going to be like 74 or something.
Wow.
Okay, Joe, I'm going to kick it back to you for your fade the Joe Public statement.
Yes.
Let's hear. You're fading yourself. I want to know who it's going to be.
All right. So, and I was kind of, it was ironic to see this here, but I'm going to go, and I don't know why I'm doing it, Cal. I should have my head examined, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to look at the University of Miami. Now, they are a favorite in this game, but the problem is about 85% of the tickets right now are Duke and the points. They want those 8.5, 9 points. And I understand why. I get it. Miami, when you look at their record this year, they have been disappointing to say the least. But the reality is 0-5 against the number. They're coming off a game against Virginia Tech, in which the final score made it seem like this was a much closer game than it was. You know how much I despise Mario Cristobal. But that game wasn't close last week against Virginia Tech. It was a couple of empty netters. Late in that game, Miami was never in risk of losing that game at all. Do not let the final score fool you. Not to mention that over the last couple of years, the one thing with Manny Diaz as the head coach that really seemed to right the ship for Miami was taking on Duke here on a Saturday afternoon about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's going to be about 91 here this weekend with the humidity and a slight chance of rain. I think Miami got right last week, Cal, in this game. Obviously, Van Dyke had a great game statistically. They did a lot of good things after what was a very disappointing last couple of weeks here for the U. The reality is they beat them by 37 2 years ago, 45 the year prior to that. They should have absolutely no problem beating Duke by double digits in this game. And I think because that score seemed so close last week, we're getting them at a discount right now. This ain't going to be North Carolina. You're not going to almost beat Miami in Miami. I am taking the U. I am fading the public who wants to do nothing but fade the U and back Duke. I'm back in Miami here. I'm fading the public here, Kel, as the tickets come rolling in on the Duke Blue Devils.
Yeah, I don't blame you here. Duke lost in that heartbreaker of a game. I was on them on the money line. So, of course, I remember. I'm not sure how much they're going to be able to get up after losing to their in-state rival. Oof. Marco D'Angelo, the deli. Oh, boy. It has been just good eating lately. Is it back open this week?
Just ask Joe how good it's been eating. Damn guys in here getting free sandwiches every week.
I am hungry, Marco. I am hungry. And I was this close to this play, too. This close. Disgusting.
I am going with Arizona State. And this is all about the sandwich spot, guys. You're looking at the scheduling here. We've got both teams are 2-4. So it's not like either one of these teams are big teams and really should be looking ahead to anything. But when you got 2-4 teams, obviously they're bad. Arizona State's been so bad that earlier in the season, third week of September, they fired their coach after the game. Why? Well, they were a 20.5-point favorite, and they lost to Eastern Michigan. That was enough to get Herm Edwards fired. The 3 games since then, for the new coach, they went 1-2. But I got to point out that the 2 games immediately following the firing were against Utah and USC. Those are the defending Pac-12 champ and the everybody's darling Southern Cal, Lincoln Riley's doing so well this year. So not so bad of losses to those 2 teams. Last week, what'd they do? Well, they pulled the upset, as Joe was talking about earlier segment. They beat Washington actually 2 weeks ago. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, which is actually an added bonus. They went in as a 13.5-point underdog and beat Washington. Washington started the season out decent, but we saw they've been pretty much a fraud. No defense. Arizona State took advantage of it. Now, with 2 weeks to prepare, you've got a head coach that can tinker with things. And I've made some money with this angle the last few weeks, both in college football and the NFL. When you get some extra time to prepare a new coach, he can go back to the drawing board, take out things that weren't working, add fine-tune things that were, and put a couple new wrinkles in. We saw Nebraska respond well after their 2-week break with their new coach. I think you're going to see the same thing here with Arizona State. But the real rub to this game is going against Stanford. Look what Stanford's coming off of. They went to Notre Dame last week. And I know it's a down year for Notre Dame. But when you're a 20-some-year-old kid and you're going on the road to play at Notre Dame, that is always a big game. Everybody wants to play in South Bend, in that stadium, with all of that tradition, pomp and circumstance, all of that. And they went and won the game as a big underdog. I'm looking for them to come up flat. Why? Look at who they got next. Stanford plays UCLA, who coming into this weekend is still undefeated in the Pac-12. That's a big-time sandwich between Notre Dame and one of your big brothers of the state, UCLA. I'm going to go ahead, take Arizona State plus the points. Let's call it 28-24. Little sprinkle on the money line as well.
Now I'm starving. Thanks, Marco. We still have best bets to get to and an NFL show, and I'm locked in this chair. Very tasty sandwich by Marco D'Angelo. Let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, you can find out which best bet Joe and I were arguing over.
You're a winner at Wager Talk even before the game is played with our Wager Rewards program. How does it work? Simple. Earn Wager Rewards on every purchase made at Wager Talk and Sports Memo. Those wager rewards can be converted into wager bucks on the first of every month. There is no additional fee to participate, and no additional details are required outside your valid Wager Talk or Sports Memo membership. On the first of each month, 5% of your wager rewards will be converted to wager bucks, which are available to purchase on all future purchases. Doesn't it feel good to be part of a rewards program with no additional hoops?
Welcome back to Bet On It. It is now time for Best Bets. And while my best bet has not been doing very good in college football, we're going to keep it going here. I'm going to take the Liberty Flames plus 6.5 over BYU. And I know it hasn't been pretty for Liberty. Last week, they had to squeak out a win over Gardner-Webb. Their lone loss came on the shoulders of 4 turnovers to Wake Forest. But this is a really solid team, particularly head coach Hugh Freeze, 26-11 against the spread as an underdog, including 9-3 against the spread as an underdog at home. BYU, I know it goes against Ralph Michaels' nerd chart, and I hate to see it, but this team has not covered since week 2 versus Baylor. I'm looking for this team to keep that ATS skid alive. I like Liberty here, plus the points, and of course, see if we can't get a little sprinkle on that money line. Marco D'Angelo, who is your best bet week 8 in college football?
Well, Kelly, before I get to my best bet, I want to tell the listeners about a special deal we got going that you were supposed to set me up on, but that's okay. I'll set myself up. There's no problem.
Marco, self-promotion is so much better. You're so much better at it. I was going to add to my best bet, like something stupid like Liberty Bibberty, because that commercial reminds me of me doing this damn show where I screw up the most basic things over and over and over again. Right here, I just covered my notes with my own paper. It says right here, Marco's got a special package. Promo code, college football 50, CFB 50. $449. You're getting $50 off Marco's college football for the rest of the season. The first 10 people, guess what? You guys are getting free 30-day all access. Yeah, Marco D'Angelo is going to give out some hockey and some NBA and maybe even some college basketball to go with that college football and NFL. Marco, I am so sorry. Please give us your best bet for this week.
Nailed it.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Kelly. Good job. You're my favorite female host at Wager Talk, okay?
Liberty.
All right, let's get to my best bet. We are going to go with Texas Tech. Yes, the Red Raiders. We are going to take them against West Virginia. My good buddy Sig's not going to be happy with me. I'm going against his school, West Virginia. But you know what? West Virginia is still flying high on cloud 9 from last Thursday night when they beat the Baylor Bears on Thursday night football. We always talk about those midweek games, the standalone games. That was a huge game for West Virginia. Now they got to go out on the road. But I got to point out that Baylor game last week, they benefited from 3 Baylor turnovers in that game. And Baylor still put up 40 points against them. Baylor had 590 yards and only punted once in that game. I don't see West Virginia stopping this Texas Tech offense. Now, you're going to look and say, hey, but Texas Tech's 1-3 of their last 4 games. Why do I want to lay a touchdown with a team like that? You want to know why? Because you look at who they played. They played NC State, Texas, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. All 4 of those teams are top 25 teams. We're going to go ahead and take Texas Tech. They're going to take West Virginia out behind the woodshed and give them just a good old-fashioned ass-kicking. I'm laying the points 45-28 in typical Big 12 fashion. Don't expect a defensive game, but look for a lot of points from Texas Tech. We're laying it as my best bet this week.
Marco, we're not allowed to talk about Lubbock, Texas and ass whoopings in the same sentence, but that's long gone. Hopefully they're over it by now. Coach Leach, never change. Joe Raineri, timestamps, literally 10:43 Eastern Standard Time. I put in Liberty as my best bet. 10:38. You send over Liberty as your best bet to our producer, Will, and he just writes back all the laughing emojis. Please explain yourself.
No idea there. I'm hard at work. Got a few things rolling here, putting out fires, answering on the phone with Oklahoma State. I'm all over the map. And then when I finally put it all together and send it out, I'm like, oh man, she picked Liberty too. Damn it! But I'm with you. I'm still betting them, and I'm going to do it on the alternate line just because that's how much I like Hugh Freeze and Liberty this weekend. All right, since Marco took my Arizona State game, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to focus my best bet on the one and only who doesn't like a good Gamecock to finish the show, right? So here's where we are. South Carolina at home, off a bye week. Well, wait a minute. So is Texas A&M. They're off a bye week as well. How is this for a crazy-ass stat? Courtesy of our good friend here, Mark Lawrence. Cal, 3-15 is what Texas A&M is, coming off a bye week if they're on the road facing a team with a winning record. So they have not historically done well in this particular spot. Their season, for the most part, is pretty much, shall we say, over. I don't know who's a bigger thief. Is it Jimbo Fisher or Russell Wilson? We can have that argument because I think it's a fantastic argument. But the reality is they don't have a quarterback. Both quarterbacks that they do have left on this roster, A&M, are banged up. And speaking of banged up, it's been a rough go for South Carolina, especially defensively. As many as 8, count them, 8 starters on the defensive side of the ball for South Carolina have been hurt or have missed games here. This bye week, it has allowed them over the last couple of weeks to get healthy. They are fully healthy, and they are ready to go at home in what is going to be a rocking atmosphere. Our friend Trigg I believe he said he has been at this stadium for a game. I don't know if there's a stadium he hasn't been out, because every time we bring that up, he says he's been there. But I'm going to take his word for it and say that this is absolutely the spot you want to back the home dog here with South Carolina. The defense is healthy. The rushing game is under the radar. The whole team at this point, I think, has been flying under the radar. Everybody loves A&M. Everyone thinks they're the A&M of old. They're not defensively, and they certainly aren't offensively. Give me the Gamecocks to get it done here. 3.5. I got no problem, Cal, because you can keep your 3.5. I'm going all money line on this one, Cal.
I'm with you, Joe. They are on my list as well. I love when we all agree.
Oh, really?
Seems like we're actually a big, happy family.
Show the paper. I don't believe it. I don't believe that I was... Oh, for Christ's sakes, there it is. Look at it. Yeah, look at it. She's got that damn book. That book is brutal, Mark.
Well, in all fairness, I've got like 12 or 13 games. I've already scratched off 3 of them, and I may have to take a little better look at that West Virginia game. Maybe Marco and I are not seeing eye to eye on that one. We are going to take our last commercial break here on the show. When we come back, it's time for the recap.
Marco D'Angelo is like a fine wine as he just gets better with age. Since 1980, Marco has been one of the industry's leading handicappers, and this year is no different. Marco is currently the #1 handicapper at Wager Talk this season in college football in both winning percentages and money won, sitting at 27-15 for a net profit of 29 units. The rest of the college football season, including all the college football games, is $4.99. Last year, Marco was 13-4 in bowl games and for a net profit of 34 units. For a limited time, you can take $50 off that price when you use coupon code CFB50, making your final cost just $3.99. And for the first 10 who sign up, we have a free bonus, a $299 value, comping you a 30-day all-access subscription that will include all of Marco's NFL, NBA, and NHL plays for free. Why do you want to bet with Marco in October? Last October, Marco was #1 in the NFL at Wager Talk. His NFL plays went 14-7-2, netting 23 units. His NHL plays went 4-0, he was up 8 units, and his NBA plays went 3-1, up 4 units. You'll want to hurry, this is a limited time offer.
All right, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us each and every Wednesday evening here on Bet On It. It's now time to wrap it all up and give you guys the college football gift for Week 8. UCLA at Oregon. Marco says it's only UCLA's second road game of the year. Lay the 6 with the Ducks. Joe and I are on the other side. We like the Bruins, but Joe particularly likes them in the first half. We're not in agreement on Oklahoma State, Texas either. I lean towards the Cowboys pending some injury information from Mike Gundy, but Marco says he likes Texas. Lay it with the Horns on the road. Joe says give them the under, which I agree with. Barking dogs aplenty on this show if you guys read between the lines. Marco's taking my alma mater, K-State, plus 3.5. Joe says he likes the Cal Bears, plus 7.5. Speaking of more barking dogs, the sandwich game, Arizona State plus 3. That deli has been treating us really well. And Joe said, don't fall for the trap. Yeah, the Canes have not been good against the spread. Duke off that letdown of a game and how they lost North Carolina. Lay it with Miami minus 9. My best bet, Liberty plus 6.5. Don't forget to sprinkle a little bit on that money line. Joe's best bet, also a nice little barking dog on the money line, South Carolina. And Marco says, Kelly, scratch West Virginia off your list because Texas Tech is going to absolutely hammer this team. Speaking of Marco, CFB50 is the promo code to get the rest of his college football season, $50 off. And the first 10 people that sign up for it get 30 days all access for free. From Joe, Ralph, myself, and last but not least, Marco D'Angelo. We'll see you guys on Monday. Until then, let's bet on it.